Hello, and in this video I'll be showing you how you can cut or slice a large 3D asset such as a helmet into multiple pieces for the purpose of 3D printing. If you wish to skip the introduction and go straight to the tutorial, go to one of the timestamps to the side. I will be doing one for 3ds Max and one for Blender. But anyway, why am I doing this? Whenever someone uploads a large asset online, one of the first comments is normally something along the lines of, "Hey, can you cut this into smaller pieces? It won't fit on my printer." Not everyone has something like a CR10 with a very large base. Many people, such as me, have an Ender 3 and a normal size helmet just won't fit on that. So I need to cut it into smaller pieces. So, number one. Secondly, it may fit on your printer, but you may still want to cut it into smaller pieces because you may prefer smaller prints, such as me. I don't want my printer going on for over 24 hours or 16 hours. All of this can fit on my bed and can be printed together, but takes 16 hours. I'd rather do 2 8-hour prints throughout the day and have a quiet night's sleep or relaxing evening. Thirdly, you may want to save printing time and save material printing supports. Because this is the top of the helmet, it's overhanging directly at the top, and you don't want to dip in on itself, so you need a lot of support material there, so it holds its shape. However, this only uses this much support material with this kind of circumference. If I printed the whole helmet, it may, instead of printing this, print this much support material with the same circumference, add maybe 5 or 6 hours to your print if you're trying to have it highly detailed, and waste a lot of filament. So you may not want to do that. Fourthly, and finally, you may want to print out a prototype. You may want to cut out a horizontal section just to say, does it fit on my head? Is it the right size? I did one of these here. Put this on my head. Look, this fits. It's not too big, it's not too small. It's hitting my ears a little bit, but that's just fine. You don't want to spend 1 week printing out something to find out it doesn't fit. Yes, it might be good for display, but if you want that as a cosplay piece, it now doesn't meet its function. So you can just print out a test, which takes less of a day, so you don't waste an entire week. And if you do need to make it bigger, if you make it bigger and it doesn't fit on your bed, you may want to cut it smaller anyway. So anyway, let's jump into the tutorial. Here we are in 3ds Max, and we need to slice our model, but first we need to import it. So go to File, Import, and select the STL which you want to put in and slice. In this case, I'm selecting the helmet, which is a Mandalorian helmet. When you import an asset, you'll have a box such as this, and Weld, Auto Smooth, Remove Double Faces, and Unify Normals will usually be ticked by default. I normally turn these off. It means it imports quicker. But the main reason I turn it off is because it may modify a mesh in a way which I do not want, especially when it comes to welding. I want to see how the weld will affect the model, especially if it's a high poly model, such as the helmet in this case. Let's just click OK. And this is our imported model here. So I'm just going to change it so we can see it a bit more clearly. I'm just going to change this to black. Press M. Bring in a standard shader. Right click, apply, and we can see that much better. So anyway, first thing we need to do is weld all our geometry together. So let's just go to Editable Mesh, right click, and change it to an Editable Poly. Now click on Vertex, select our whole mesh, and we're going to weld this together here. So I'm just going to zoom in to show you why I didn't use the default weld. If I use the default weld and just click weld, as you can see here, the places where the vertices are dense, it would have started destroying itself and imploding. So let's just Control Z, and I'm just going to go on Settings and turn down the settings to what I want. Now my scale is in centimeters here, but usually it can be too small on whatever unit you have in your scene by default. So even at 0.1, we can still say here is causing some problems. So I'm just going to add another 0. Now, this doesn't really matter that much because every vertex should be on top of each other exactly. So even if it was 0.0001, it should still work. And I'm just going to click the tick to apply. Okay, excellent. So now I'm just going to go on select element and select our whole helmet. By selecting the whole helmet, it means we can modify the whole mesh and cut through it all. So we're going to use a slice modifier to cut our mesh into different pieces. So we go to the modify list, type in slice. And we can now see we have a horizontal plane over our asset, and where the plane intersects with the helmet, you can see it's creating new geometry all along the mesh. Now, if we attempt to move this plane and move here, we will see we're moving our whole mesh at the moment. If you want to make sure you're moving the plane, just make sure you click on the slice plane button. Well, the slice plane drop down, and now if you move up and down, left and right, you can start moving it up and down your mesh, and it will slice that way. Now, you may not want to cut horizontally, but if you want to do that, you just go over to rotate, and you can rotate this as well, however you want, and cut out with whichever angle you wish. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and do a horizontal cut here, just where the eye slit is. It's a little bit slow here just because my computer is a little bit old at the moment. So anyway, let's say we want to slice here and cut our model in half. We have a little menu over here. We have refine mesh, split mesh, remove top, and remove bottom. Refine mesh, what refine mesh will do is it will create geometry all along that line, but it won't actually detach the sections of the mesh from each other. If we go on split mesh, it will now add in that geometry and it will separate them from each other, which means if we select element on them, they will be two different sections. Remove top and remove bottom are pretty self-explanatory. Remove top will remove the top section. Remove bottom will remove the bottom section. So split mesh is essentially cutting in the middle. However, when we cut here, as we can see here, it's empty on the inside, it is uncapped. If we want to fill this in with a modifier, we can type in cap and get the cap holes, and it will now create and fill in that gap when we slice. So if we go on split mesh, right click and collapse all on the stack, it will go back to our mesh, click element, we have our top half, we have our bottom half. And if we zoom in, we can see it is capped there on the bottom and the top. However, we're not quite finished yet. We do need to detach this from the object. So just go over to Edit Geometry, Detach, and change it to a different object, so that when we export, it won't export these together, and they'll be their own unique pieces. So let's just do another split, and I'll show you where using the cap tool will not work. So anyway, if we do it once more, slice plane, let's select our whole mesh first. Slice, select our plane, move it where we want, split mesh, cap, collapse the stack, select element, select the top section, and pull up. Now here our cap holes has not worked. The reason is on this bottom one here, we only had one border. But because we're cutting across this section and it's more tube-like, we have two borders, one for the inner circle, one for the outer circle. And what cap holes will do by default is just create two circles and not join between the two. So anyway, let me just quickly show you how to connect between the two. So what you want to do here is select an inner edge and an outer edge. So here's an outer edge and this is an inner edge, and you just want to click bridge between the two. Now, because we've clicked bridge between the two, we don't have two borders that will make a circle. We have one border that will fill in on itself, and we can now click cap. And that's how we solve that problem and know how to do it manually if our modifier doesn't work. And the same for the bottom. Delete, delete, select edge, inner edge, outer edge, bridge, select border, cap. And now that those are done, once again, select, edit geometry, detach. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this into more pieces. And that's it. Within a few minutes, I have taken a helmet or a large asset for the purpose of 3D printing and split it into 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got this as 5. I'm going to just do one more detach. 6 separate pieces that'll all go ahead and fit onto my printer. And if I want smaller pieces even more, I can just go ahead and split further to my heart's content. So anyway, let me jump over to Blender and show you how you can do it in there. Here we are in Blender, and before we start splitting our helmet, we will need to import it first. So go over to File, Import, and we can select our file format here, STL. Select the asset which you want, in this case is the Mandalorian helmet, and click Import. The helmet is now imported into the scene. So before we get started, the main thing we want to make sure we have enabled is if we go over here and we click on Edit, it is the Bool tool. So before we start, make sure we go over to Edit, Preferences, just go to Search, type in Bool, and make sure you click to enable the Bool tool. So unlike Max, we will be using a physical plane which we put in ourselves. So let's just click on Add, Mesh, Plane. And it's going to come in tiny because our mesh is huge. So let's just scale it up. Okay, so nice and simple. We will be moving our mesh up and down, and this will intersect and slice wherever we want. So I'm just going to bring this here horizontally, just underneath the eyes. Now what I'm going to do, make sure I select the plane first, then select the mesh. I'm going to click Slice. And that's it done. I have taken the mesh, it is now separated into 2 pieces. If I pull this upwards, it's also capped both pieces as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and keep doing this technique. So add a mesh, add a plane, scale it up, move it where you want it. Click your first object, click your second object, click Slice. And once again, it has sliced there and gives us exactly what I want. Now, just remember, I'm just going to bring this back. Don't click on the mesh and then shift click onto the plane, then click Slice, because otherwise it'll do this. Where it only keeps one part of the actual mesh, we want to make sure we keep 2. So if you want to keep the whole mesh, Control Z, make sure you click on the plane first, then shift click on the helmet or the mesh which you want sliced, and click on Slice. And remember, if we want to cut vertically, we just need to bring in our plane and rotate it. And just press Control so that it snaps to that angle. There we go. We've now got it vertically. I'll just move to here. First object, second object, slice. And that's it done. Now what I should really be doing when I bring in these planes is duplicating them so I don't have to scale them up all the time. But anyway, it helps to show you the process to just repeat again. And with that, we're almost done. If I just go ahead and select here, you can see these are still one piece, even though I may want to print them out separately. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to separate them. So let's just quickly go to edit mode. Make sure we've got faces selected, click, press Ctrl L, which will select the whole element. And then we can click P and it'll let us detach either by material or by selection or loose parts. So anyway, I'm going to detach by my selection. And now that is split. Back to object mode. So that's it, finished. I have split my large mesh, my helmet, into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. And that will all fit onto my printer. And if I want to split them up more, I can at my own discretion. So that's all. I have showed you how to, in 3ds Max and Blender, separate a mesh into multiple sections for the purpose of 3D printing. I hope this video was useful to you and your 3D printing endeavors. If you've got any additional questions, drop a comment below. If it did help you, feel free to like. And if you'd like to see more of me in the future, feel free to subscribe. Thank you for watching and goodbye.